All right, time to stream. Today's prompt is United. I'm using that as an excuse to show the Ninja Turtles. Um, excuse me while I have some candy. Good timing, Chris. Yeah, so got a couple of my pens out. Position this. Hello, Charles, and hello, Jesus. We're getting closer and closer to the end of all of this, but still a few more days together. So anyway, Ninja Turtles is one of my absolute favorites, and was just sort of waiting for the right day to sort of fit the theme. But I think United definitely should count. And I don't know if I'll have time to draw all of the Ninja Turtles, but we'll do as much as I can tonight and see where it goes. Hello, Anja. How are you? How are things in India? There we go. So yeah, I've been a big fan of the Ninja Turtles. I just happened to discover them just a little before they had their first cartoon. It's one of the first sort of indie comics that I gave a try to, among them anyway, and cracked me up, and I thought it was cool. Been a fan of them ever since. Haven't haven't watched like all their cartoons or anything like that. Just never been able to really keep up, but I've seen a smattering of all of them. And I really like the designs of the current version from Nickelodeon. So that's what I'm trying to do here. I used to draw their sort of original comic versions that Eastman and Laird created. I used to draw those all the time when I was a teenager. But I've never really tried to draw the team in these outfits. So I thought it could be kind of fun for myself. Hello, Shirley. Hello, Mike. Nice to have everybody here. The the one big trick to drawing these Ninja Turtles is that they're very angular because they're sort of blocky CG characters in the cartoon, and I'm trying to smooth just a little bit of that out, but like keep the design faithful, if that makes sense. So I want it to be identifiable as them, but maybe not quite as angular. Anyway, that's my goal. Hello, Dark Dragon. Lots of hellos tonight. Very cool. Let's see. If today is Sunday, and it is, that I guess means that I've only got 2 more nights of this after this drawing. So we're getting pretty close. I feel good that I'm close to completing this. That I've been able to live stream it all. I'm not sure if I've made any improvements yet. I'll determine that later. Let's see. Hello and good evening, says Aldi, although it's 2 p.m. here. Fair enough. Nintendo says, I recognize the poses, but are you doing the Nick Turtles or Eastman and Laird's? Yes, so I was just saying that, Nintendo. I'm basically using the pose from the Eastman and Laird original issue, but the designs from the current Nickelodeon version. Hey, Gershagorsh, thank you for returning. It's nice to see you. Why is the weather going to suck for you tomorrow, Dark Dragon? Where are you? Uh, in case people don't know, there is a new Comic Tropes episode up today. It was one of the tougher ones to edit. There was a lot to it was a lot to research, basically, which extended to all elements of pre-production and post-production, especially because I was covering about a 4-year long run, which is just a lot of comics to be discussing. So to find the actual, like, a lot of that stuff was up in my head, but to refer to specific incidents in chronological order and then to pull the images required a lot of back and forth. It was rough. Dark Dragon says going to have harsh rain and high winds. Whereabouts? So it was anyway. It was one of the tougher episodes I've sort of made, even though you might not, or hopefully you can't really tell that it's one of the tougher episodes. Hopefully it just sort of stands on its own as an episode. And you're not thinking about that. But since you're all here to just chat, I thought I'd mention that. It took a long time to, it took a lot more hours than a normal episode. A lot more. Oh, a bunch of questions. Hulk versus Thor movie says, Yo, homeboy, pimpin' ass job with the Walt S. Thor video. Thor is my second favorite homie from Marvel, except for Pete Dave Hulk. Excellent job explaining what Mr. Simonson did to make his Thor comics revolutionary. Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate the compliment. Nintendo is an artist and says, I've tried this pose with TMNT before. Didn't go too well. You did it fantastically. You have my artistic respect. Shirley, thank you very much. I made this shirt last night. I went out to a midnight screening of the original Halloween with a buddy, and they had a screen printer there, and you could do it yourself. You could make Halloween shirt. I think it came out pretty well. It was a lot of fun. You'd actually pull the rack across to get the paint on the shirt, and then you'd have to put the heat lamp over, and it starts. It actually smokes, and then you know that it's ready. It was fun. It was interesting seeing that movie in the theater. Um, I've seen it on TV as a teenager, but I'd never seen it on the big screen before. Let's see. Aldi says, I haven't watched the new comic Tropes yet, but wasn't this the time when Beta Ray Bill was introduced? It sure was. Oh, thank you, Shirley. She watched the latest video I made. Dark Dragon says, Mushroom Head, for the few who know them, made masks styled like Jason's for a Halloween tour. I don't follow that one. I was trying to. I think I missed something. I'm gonna draw, finish out like sort of all the elements of Donatello first because he's my favorite turtle. That said, the version of Michelangelo that they created for the Nickelodeon show is fantastic. He's so funny and charming and cute. Yeah. I like all the Ninja Turtles. It's weird to say that I've got a favorite because like Raphael usually gets the best storylines and Leonardo has the most sort of drama and conflict and character arc stuff, but there's something about Donatello and his just sort of usefulness to the team. His big brain is very valuable, and yet he can go out there and fight with all the rest of them. So just felt like he's kind of the most valuable guy in a way, and he doesn't really beg for credit or anything. I like Donatello. Ooh, I like me that Donatello. He's a fine, fine man. Yeah. Nintendo says, did you use the Revoltech turtle figures for this reference? I did. I did. I am a big fan of those. Revoltech makes some really nice action figures. And having that three-dimensional object really helps figure out like where the shadows need to go. So I like that. I think there were some more questions in the chat. Let me take a look and see. I think there was a girl turtle in the new animated show. In the new animated show there was? No, they didn't do that, right? Like from the terrible live action show in 2000, I don't know what it was, like 5 or 6, something like that. That's a terrible character. I hope they didn't do that. It just felt really egregious when it was on the live action show, but maybe they did something different on the animated show that make it work. I don't know. That would be interesting. Well, I'll have to look at some point. Who liked the 2007 TMNT movie? That's from Dark Dragon. I like it okay. It looked good. It had good voice acting. I didn't love the plot. They were fighting like those weird ancient beasts. I don't know. It just didn't speak to me a whole lot. It was interesting that it essentially acted like it fit with the other three live action movies. I didn't expect that. It was an interesting choice. Hello, Software Agents Court. You should draw, Shirley. I'm sure that you'd draw something amazing. We have plenty of tools that you could borrow. I'm going to sneeze. Ooh, excuse me. Ninja Turtles Next Mutation. I loved it as a kid, but is by all accounts terrible. I've rewatched it since twice. It does think it's terrible. Huge fan of Ninja Turtles. I'll forgive a lot. Next Mutation is just so cheap. It's so cheap. And yeah, I don't know. That show annoyed me. It's live action, and yet the masks that they wear like barely move at all. What else is going on aside from Ninja Turtles? Take a look at the chat in just a sec. I want to get the new Nika Turtles, but hell no am I paying $110 for each. I guess I don't know about those. 110, huh? What are they based on? How big are they? Are they like 12-inch or something? Because I bought some pretty expensive Ninja Turtles before. I have a collection of every version of Donatello. So there was some company that made like a version based on like the latest live action movies, which weren't that great. For my collection, I did get it. It's like a couple $100, and then Mondo produced a series of them based on their original comic book versions, and they're like also like close to a foot tall, like really detailed and really posable. Those were over 100. Maybe they were like 200. So there's a chance I may suck it up and get whatever this Nika version is. It's one of my few collections. I was going to say that you're an hour earlier today, Chris, but it's winter time change here. We're coming up on that soon. Gotcha. Glad that you got to still see it. Name a writer and artist you want to do TMNT. That's a cool question. Let's see. I would like to see the team behind Southern Bastards, Jason Aaron and Jason Latour, take a crack at it. I think that they could do something interesting. Oh, right. It was Venus in the live action series. God, I tried to forget that one. Yeah, Venus de Milo is not so good. Just a bad character. Also, that when they introduced Venus, they were like, oh, and also the Ninja Turtles aren't literal brothers, so they're allowed to be attracted to Venus de Milo. I was like, if you say so. I don't really want to think about them having feelings for anybody else. It's just too weird. What else do I need to do here? Fill in this bow staff. The new Ninja Turtles are based on the original Jim Henson '90s movie. They look fantastic and are 16 inches each. It's good for you if you only want Donnie. I say definitely go for it. P.S. Cool collection. Thanks, Nintendo. Let's see. If they look the same as the versions that they did for, like, I don't know, 8-inch or something like that, I don't know that I need to be a total completionist if all they did was scale the same exact thing up. If it's different, then maybe. I don't know if I consider scale an actual change, because I also don't like try to get them like mint in box or like variations or anything like that. I'm just trying to get every sort of version that's been created, if that makes sense, like the look, the overall look. So when they made like Frankenstein Donatello this month, I had to get that. But if they just made a mini version that was only like 2 inches tall, I wouldn't feel obligated to get that. That's how my collection works. Full of weird arbitrary rules, I guess. Anyone discover any good music lately? I never know what the cool music of today is, unless my fiance tells me, because she listens to a good amount of streaming services and will tell me that, like, oh, you should give this a try or that a try. Dark Dragon says Michelangelo is both brothers and her, I think, her favorite turtle. I'm guessing just based on your icon. I'm pretty sure one of the people who worked on TMNT is from Maine. Yeah, I don't know. I know that Eastman and Laird both had a studio in Massachusetts, so I think that they're both from New England, but I'm not sure if one is from Maine or not. Oh, it is new tooling, says Nintendo, for that big Donatello. All right, well then I guess it's one that I'll need to find a way to add to my collection. Interesting. Sigamig says, "Are you a fan of any of the TMNT cartoons?" I'll ask that in a sec. I'll answer that in a second. Shirley says she likes Thunder by Arcade Fire. I don't think I know their song Thunder, so I'll give that a listen. Thank you. Appreciate the recommendation. I generally like Arcade Fire. Got to see them perform live once pretty early on in their career, back when I was living in DC. It's a good show. Um, yeah, I think I'd say that I'm sort of a fan of all the cartoons for various reasons. Like the original, it sort of it got extra goofy eventually, but I was pretty young when that came out, so it has some emotional resonance just to the voices and the design and stuff. Just that was the version I essentially grew up with. I definitely know the least about the 2003 version. I've maybe only seen like 2 episodes of that ever, something like that. So I don't know that one super well. But my friend Kari was a designer on that show at the time, so he did a bunch of Ninja Turtle art at that point in time, and it was really cool seeing all that because I was definitely a fan of the Turtles in general. So I'm more familiar with that part of it, just seeing his art um, than the show. And I've seen I don't know, maybe like a third of the Nickelodeon version. Maybe it's a little less than that, but a good amount, and I like it. It's funny. It's interesting. It's pretty cool, I think. This guy I know, Eric, does some voices on it. Like who's the leader of the Purple Dragons? Forgetting his name right now. Some fan I am. And Tiger Claw. He does the voice of Tiger Claw. I like that voice. It's got menace, but he sounds kind of dignified. Eric Bauza, yeah. Aldi recommends Vaporware. What music are you into? Says Nintendo. Rock, alternative, some pop music. I like some electronic stuff, especially like when they're trying to sort of go for an 80s sound. I really like that. What else do I like? Old school hip hop, but I'm always looking to try to understand who the good rappers today are, just so that I don't leave it all behind. Do I have any favorites musically speaking? Um, mm, yeah. I haven't thought for a while of who my favorites are. Um, I like the Foo Fighters. They're up there. Um, who else will I listen to? Pretty much anything from. Like Young the Giant is a pretty good one. Um, hmm. Yeah, it's hard to hard to think about right now while I'm drawing. I like Drake. I like most of the stuff by Drake. Hmm. Gersh Gorsh recommends Adrian von Ziegler. That's cool. All right. Since we're talking musics, rock, metal, and the Gorillas, I also like the Gorillas. I should. They're pretty cool. I like them a lot. Nintendo says I like Jamiroquai, Daft Punk, Gorillaz, Wu-Tang, and a bit of My Chemical Romance. Yeah, I'll listen to all of those. Daft Punk and Gorillaz, I have actual albums from, but the rest of them, I'll listen to all of those. Those are all bands that I enjoy. Musical acts, whatever you want to call it. Who here listens to music when they work or study, and who needs silence, and who, like me, likes spoken word stuff like news or podcasts and stuff like that? I don't always listen to music when I do artwork. Instead, I kind of like spoken word. I can get lost in paying attention to that pretty easily. Milosh says he recommends hard bass. Which record of Daft Punk do you have? Oh, it's not coming to me. I have their Tron Legacy stuff. What album? Hmm. It might be Human After All, actually. I see that you just posted that. That might be what I have. Gersh says he listens to news podcasts when he plays games and when I draw music. Okay, interesting. Yeah, that is interesting. Everybody has their own unique style of how to approach work. When I read, silence. Yes, I agree. I can't hear any noise when I'm reading. Gersh Gersh. Just does not work for me. I have music playing sometime around my house about 90% of the time, especially when doing art, says Nintendo. All right, you're a big music fan. Dante Riley. Dante Riley? Dante Riley. Dante Riley. Got it. Dante Riley says, I enjoy listening to sounds of rain, thunderstorms, or cool winter sounds. Uh, I like that stuff too, but it can also like make me a bit sleepy. So don't want to get too tired. K-pop, huh? Dark Dragon says, I'm watching and trying to draw two things. Nintendo asks this for everybody. What's your favorite album of all time? Wow. All time. Maybe Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars by David Bowie. I think that holds up really, really well. I like that one. That might be mine. Maybe. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, has anybody created a really interesting Halloween costume for themselves this year? I have not, so I'd be interested in living vicariously by hearing what anybody else has created. That could be interesting to hear about. If you've got something cool, tell us. Oh, wow, a lot of interesting results for favorite album. Wow, that was a good question, Mike. Oh no, excuse me. Nintendo asked that. Mike said Green Day's Nimrod. Yep, that one's good. Wish You Were Here or The Division Bell or Night at the Opera from Software Agents Corp. Dark Dragon loves Nimrod. Baldy says Michael Jackson's Thriller, classic. Milosh says Get Rich or Die Trying. Nintendo says High Times by Jamiroquai or The Stranger by Billy Joel. Huh. Wow. Linkin Park Hybrid Theory from Dante Riley. Shirley has Sergeant Pepper, The Stranger. Yep, yep. Or Thriller, yeah. Um, these are good. Wow. Death Certificate and America's Most Wanted by Ice Cube. Yeah, good stuff. Did I check out Star Wars Despecialized Edition by any chance? No, I've heard of it, but I wanted like a copy of something that I could actually sort of buy and watch on a Blu-ray. That's sort of what I'm looking for. But thank you for sending the link. Dark Dragon is going to be Robin for Halloween. Which version? There's a lot of different versions of Robin. But very cool, very cool. Or maybe you already did your costume for like a party last night or the night before or something. I don't know. That's for anybody out there. Okay, hold on. I missed a few things here. Dante Rally says, "Got to go do some sketching. Glad got to see you watch draw live. Cool. All right. Well, thanks for stopping by, Dante. That's awesome." Nintendo says, "I post my art on Instagram. Do you?" I don't post anything to Instagram regularly. I'm bad at remembering that I've got it. Gershigor says, "I grew a beard temporarily and longer hair to frighten my niece, plus some dirt on my face. She was scared." Oh, wow. Dark Dragon is going as her own version, but it was of Robin, but it was inspired by Tim Drake. Excuse me. Shirley's curious how old the niece was. 8. Oh, you've made an enemy. She's going to grow up and get you back really good someday. All right, which turtle should I ink next? Leonardo, Raphael, or Michelangelo? So I might not have time to ink all of them tonight. I inked my favorite so far, but if a clear majority of the audience cares and votes a certain way, I'll just ink that one next. So if you care, speak up now and I'll go with whatever the majority says. Do you know why the turtles are named after Renaissance artists? No, no real reason. Let's see. We've got 2 votes for Leonardo, 1 vote for Mike. Okay. Software agents course is Mike on an island? Question mark. Oh, answering something else. Okay, so I've got 2 votes for Leonardo and 1 vote for Michelangelo. So I'm probably doing Leonardo next. It's also acceptable to say that you don't care. Or just not respond, and I'll understand. I'll take the hint. Milos asks me again if I checked out the Star Wars Despecialized edition. Again, I have. I'm aware of it. I didn't check it out because I want something that I can like buy and don't. I don't want to have to figure out how to download something, and I'm just not interested in spending my time figuring that out. But yeah, I applaud the fans that took the time to do that. Wish wish Disney would do the same. Move that up. One time, my brother one time my brother and I were watching the Michael Bay TMNT, and we just laughed through the whole thing. Sometimes I made the turtles say Shrek quotes. Yeah, they do look kind of like Shrek. I agree. It's not flattering. How weird. What a weird take on those movies. I'll say this. I don't think what's her name? That actress that plays April O'Neil in those movies. She was in the Transformers movies, but I don't think she was that bad as April O'Neil. I thought she was, like there were a lot more important things to complain about, and for that kind of a movie, her performance didn't bother me at all. But I can't think of the actress's name right now. Megan Fox, something like that. Anyway, I think it's Megan Fox. Yeah, Milosh says it is. Shrek is love, Shrek is life, says Mike. Those videos crack me up. They are bizarre, and I love them. Just saying that I love them probably just put me on some sort of watch list. They're so weird. Mike says that he can't stand Megan Fox. Watching her act is like watching somebody wave a Barbie doll in front of the screen. No emotion, no range. 1,000-foot stare. Um, hmm. Well, I disagree a little. I don't think she's great, but I think she's pretty good at comedy. I think she's got pretty good timing for comedy. She was good in This Is Us. She was really good on New Girl. Isn't that the name of the sitcom? I think that's the name of the sitcom. She was actually really funny on that, I thought. So I think she may have some chops there. And she doesn't seem to take herself too seriously. So I'm never going to call myself necessarily a fan or say that she's a great actress, but I don't think she's necessarily that bad. Yeah, she had an extended arc on New Girl, Mike, and she was pretty funny and interesting on that. I thought I was quite surprised personally. I was like, oh, okay, I need to rethink what I think of this person. Nintendo says, I watched someone react to Shrek is Love, Shrek is Life, not knowing what it was. I thought it was a new animated movie trailer or something. My life changed for the worse that day. Oh. I think that new Transformers girl was similar to Megan in this photo of Shia. Priceless. Hmm. Mike says about New Girl, I saw maybe the first season and liked it, but there was a time wasn't an option, and I fell out of a lot of stuff. Yeah, I tend to watch it. I tend to binge watch it on what do you call it? Netflix after it's had a full season. When it comes to Netflix, is when I've caught up on that show. Season 2 was really funny. Season 4 and beyond is really funny. They tend to like really focus on the the ensemble. It like definitely moves pretty far away from Jess as the main character uh, as the show continues because they realize, oh, like, we have a lot of like really talented cast members here, and they do. All right, so starting some Leo. Let's see where I go with this. Whoops. Okay. Getting quiet. I guess everybody's getting sleepy. We're getting sleepy. Shirley says boo, and it scared me. Aldi asks, have you watched Gattaca? I haven't seen Gattaca, and my brother-in-law is always telling me that I should, and he's like, "We'll watch it together." I'm like, "Yeah, cool," but it just never has happened. So that's what I need to get around to at some point. Mike says, I just watched an episode of some show Stan Lee made about comic book artists with Rob Liefeld. I genuinely like that guy. That's probably his best asset, is he's pretty likable. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know. I don't care for his artwork now, but I did like it when I was younger. So, you know, if other people like it, I can objectively criticize it, you know? I can like say objectively, here is a problem with the artwork. But if other people like it, I'm, they're not like supposed to not like it. If they like it, then that's their business, and I have zero problem with somebody liking it. Personally, I'm like, yeah, all right, not for me. And here are the issues I have with, like, the anatomy, the layout, the pacing, the inconsistency. Like, I can go on and on. But if it brings people pleasure, there are worse people in the world than those that bring pleasure to others with their art. So I do not dislike Rob Liefeld, the person per se. Oh, cool emoticon or emoji, whatever you call it, Shirley. I like that. Vasilis joins us and says, "Are you want to work in future for a company like Marvel Comics?" No, not especially. I'd rather do my own thing. If I were ever lucky enough to be able to make it in comics, I'd rather write and draw my own stories. Um, I have plenty of ideas for their characters. I grew up with them, and I have like my own sort of ideas of where you could take them. Um, so I would pitch stuff to Marvel, and if they were interested, I would probably be happy to take a paycheck for a little while. But overall, my interests lie more in telling my own stories. Um, Hope that makes sense. Aldi says, what I most dislike about Liefeld is that he hasn't gotten better in the last 15 years. I think that's a very fair criticism. Like, if you're, I don't know how many artists get noticeably better over time in comics anyway, but I think you could argue most do. I really do think that you could argue that. Um, and yeah, I don't think Liefeld's done really anything to even try to improve, really. So don't have anything personal against the guy, but also his artwork isn't for me. Milo says, I'd love to do Moon Knight or Blade, but other than that, I'm like you. Yeah. If those characters especially speak to you, that's cool. Um, go for it. Yeah, I certainly have affection for a lot of Marvel characters and certain DC characters because I I grew up with them and I feel like you almost know them to a degree. You want to, yeah. Um, I'll probably always care about the characters on some level, even though they're fictional creations and all, uh, because they're just what I grew up with. What would you do with the Hulk, Skunk? Um, Never thought about it, so give me a sec. What would I do with the Hulk? I'd have to do some research first. I'd have to like the central idea behind the Hulk is dealing with, a type of duality of man. So, I'd have to think about like what kind of archetypes examine that best. And I try to come up with a lot of um, man versus science themes for the book. Try to, you know what I do? Like, since it is sort of science gone amok, and it is sort of specifically, like um, biological science gone amok, I'd look into like where science is maybe taking us in the next 20 years and say like, okay, what could go wrong with these? And those are the types of stories that I would examine to just get people thinking about these issues. I think that would be fairly relevant and interesting to do with the Hulk. And that said, like I think that certainly can be told with fighting various monsters and aliens and such. Okay, I missed a few questions, I think. Software agents, what did I miss? Hello, comic book guy. Thank you for joining. Appreciate it. He asks, should I read Youngblood? I wouldn't. Software Agents Corp says, I'm a huge fanboy for X-Men, Batman, and Spidey. I would probably screw it up if given the chance. I don't know. Mike says, I think Superman can be interesting, but usually isn't. His villains are usually much more interesting to me. Yeah, I agree with you. I think Superman is a very tricky character to make interesting because he's so powerful. I think his origin is really interesting, and then I think once he, as an adult, makes it to Metropolis, his character is kind of locked in. It's like you're not going to go through any big changes after that. He's figured out his moral center and his mission in life, etc. So you have to sort of figure out incremental character adjustments of what he can learn in terms of humility or things like that. Not kindness or sacrifice, but other aspects. And then you have to sort of build up his supporting cast to keep what's going on around him interesting. Because remember, it's a serialized story. Otherwise, you're basically just sort of telling an Elseworlds type story with him. So yeah, Superman is a tricky nut to crack, but I don't think he's tricky to make likable or to give a good adventure to. Some people really seem to get hung up on that. Hulk versus Godzilla would be fun, says Aldi. He's probably fought like a Godzilla analog, right? Or Marvel actually had Godzilla for a while. I wonder if Hulk ever fought him. Mostly, I think that Godzilla fought Red Ronin, this massive, sort of Pacific Rim-esque robot that they have. I'll have to review Marvel's Godzilla at some point. It's weird. Software Agents Corp says, I would like to challenge Superman's idealism and then reaffirm it. I like that. Comic book guy likes him. Milosh relates to Superman being sort of a small town farmer guy, farm boy. Yeah, there's some very relatable stuff about him. I think that some people fall into like this problem of trying to take Superman in a realistic direction, sort of deconstruct him. And there's elements you can deconstruct, and that's fine. But I think that you shouldn't examine it too literally because, yes, somebody with that kind of godlike power would be terrifying, but not if they are like Superman with his like incredibly noble spirit. He's just he's got like the most humanity of us all, you know? Even though he's not human, he's the most human of us all. That's how I always look at him. He's not a threat because he's a good person. It's how he was raised, and I think that's always super relevant to examining the character. Finding how somebody could be that kind, but never taking that kindness away, because then he's not Superman and he's just terrifying. And if you want to tell that kind of a story, tell that kind of a story, but probably not with Superman himself as the bad guy. Mark says, I'd buy your Hulk for sure. Thanks. If you're talking to me, then thank you. You can tell Superman wasn't made for a huge company or whole universe. He was only made for saving the day and being a role model. He was never made for being part of a universe. That's why he's so powerful. Yeah, he was one of a kind at the time, and he could solve problems single-handedly. And the problems he solved were like it was all wish fulfillment, which is at its core a huge important part to remember is that like it's adolescent wish fulfillment, the idea of a superhero, especially the idea of multiple superheroes. And so if you examine that too closely, it gets depressing because you're like, wait a minute. We're looking at a world full of like all these superheroes, you know, like imagine if there was a world with like Spider-Man and Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, etc. And they couldn't like end world hunger or end our wars. Like that's depressing. So you can't look at it too closely. You can't deconstruct it too much or it's a different type of story. It's it's interesting to like sort of understand the limitations that they have because I do think that there are limitations to what you can do with Marvel and DC as characters, and not just because they're owned by a company, but just because of like their inherent idea of a shared universe of superheroes. Like it, it just it. I think it would be very depressing to try to tell stories in which you know like they realize that they're not solving the problems of the world. Milo says, I think DC characters are less grounded than Marvel, and most of them are larger than life. So you should focus more on the superhero aspect than the human aspect. But that's my opinion. I think that's true for a lot of them. Certainly, you know, Superman and Green Lantern. But Marvel really changed all that up by really focusing on their day-to-day lives. The people behind the masks. That was probably Stan Lee's biggest innovation. Like people don't necessarily want to give him credit all the time as a writer. And I don't think we know how much he contributed and how much he didn't contribute. We definitely know that Ditko and Kirby probably created a lot of the famous stories themselves, and then Stan just sort of added the dialogue. We know that that's probably true for some, but probably also not all, because there is a consistency in Stan Lee's books. But he certainly had a lot of the core ideas, and like the core idea of like focusing on people's day-to-day lives outside of being a superhero. And that's a not insignificant idea. I think he deserves a lot of the credit for that. Mark says, I like Wacky Superman with Different Kryptonite by Kurt Swan in the 70s. Totally. Dark Dragon, thank you very much for joining us. I appreciate it. Shredder died twice. I didn't know that, says Comic Book Guy. Well, what are you talking about? The original comics or one of the cartoons? What version are you talking about? The original live action movies? Because, yeah, he's died a bunch. All right, some folks are taking off. Let's see. Nintendo's taking off. Thank you very much for joining us. Shirley, thank you very much for coming by. Always appreciate it. Nice to talk to you. What else? Comic Book Guy says, who would your coolest super team be? You can only use 4 characters and the new IDW run for the Shredder comic. Yeah, okay. I like that IDW run for the most. Pretty strong. My super team. I would take. Let me think about like who would work well together, basically, as well as overall power. I'll take Thor, Punisher, and no, I'm just let's see. Antisocial Nerd says, Chris, what is that shirt? I love jack-o'-lanterns. This is a screen print that I made last night based on the pumpkin Halloween design from John Carpenter's Halloween, the 1978 horror movie. This is the specific, like, during the opening credits, there's a jack-o'-lantern that just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and it's this specific design with like this notch from like the nose to the smiley face. So last night I went to a midnight screening of Halloween, and you could screen print your own T-shirt there. So I made one. Yeah, it was great. It was like $10 bucks. It's totally worth it. Pretty unique because only the people that were there got to make it. Thank you. That said, I'm sure if you looked, somebody else out there has given some thought to a design similar to this. It's based on the jack-o'-lantern from the original Halloween movie. Sigmig says, do you think that there are any adaptations that are better than the original? Yeah, absolutely. Almost anything that's been adapted from Mark Millar's comic books has been better. I would say that Logan was better than Old Man Logan. I would say the Kick-Ass movie was better than the comics. The original Kingsman was better than the comics. And I almost hate saying that because these all have like really good artists, but no, I think that the movie interpretations are superior. So yeah, there's definitely lots of stuff that's been an improvement. You could argue that like stuff that's been around a long time and has been interpreted like tons of different ways that eventually there's a better version. Like maybe there's a better version of Zorro out there. I don't know. I think you could argue anyway that like the Martin Campbell movie was possibly better than some of the old serials. Maybe not. You could argue that All Star Superman was, a better distillation of everything that's awesome about Superman than some of the original comics. Um, and that's not taking away from the originality of the original comics or the original creations. It's just to say that somebody's had the time to really distill the essence of something and make a better version. So yeah, I think that there's plenty of adaptations that have improved on the source material. Milos comes up with his four people: Robbie Reyes, Ghost Rider, Blade, Moon Knight, and Elektra. I don't think that they'd have a whole lot of success during the Skrull invasion. Depends. I don't know. I would choose Thor, Captain America, Iron Man, and got to give them like one more person. So who else is like a really useful Avenger? I mean, there's Vision, there's Scarlet Witch, Hawkeye, Spider-Man, Black Widow. We'll say Spider-Man. Software Agents Corp says, I think Mark Millar has interesting ideas, but the maturity level is on par with a preteen who discovered cursing in R-rated movies. I think that's pretty fair. I really do. I think that that's pretty fair. Milos says that Blade is better in the movie than in any of the comics. That's a good point. He probably is. The Blade 1 and 2 are probably better than any of the Blade comics. Now, I haven't read them all, so that's why I'm sort of like saying like probably. But yeah, probably. So yeah, every once in a while, an adaptation is definitely superior. Gershigorsh's team: Space Ghost, Birdman, Zorak, and Moltar. Aldi would just take 4 Green Lanterns. Sure. Comic Book Guy says I would have Donatello, Wolverine, Red Hood, and Tony Stark. See, but you're doubling up with 2 badasses and 2 geniuses. No, it's a cool idea. Here's my logic. Thor, Captain America, Iron Man, and Spider-Man. Tony Stark is the genius that can solve almost any technological problem. Thor is the heavy hitter that can take care of any huge threats. Captain America is like the ultimate leader. He figures out how to win. He thinks with a strategic mind. He's also incredible in a fight. He can more than hold his own. And Spider-Man is sort of like this mix between being able to go from like street level stuff to potentially cosmic stuff. I mean, he's got a really nimble power set, a good personality to keep the team sort of in positive spirits, etc. So that's my logic for a good team. And it's been established that like they all work together really, really well and respect each other in the comics most of the time. I know every once in a while there are squabbles, but most of the time those 4 always get along tremendously. So that's my logic. Hopefully that makes sense for a 4-person team. Comic Book Guy would add Storm Shadow for a 5th person. Not bad. Robbie would easily defeat the Skrulls, says Milos. He doesn't even need to know who is real and who isn't. The penance stare would take care of that. All right. Guess you've got it figured out. That works for me, that logic. See, when you're writing something, as long as the writer has an internal logic, well, I'll buy into it. All right. Oh, let's see. Antisocial Nerd is taken off because phone is dying. That makes sense. What 80s megastars would you cast as X-Men? Oh, okay, I get it. Like if we were making an X-Men movie in the 80s. Well, Schwarzenegger would have to play Colossus. I mean, he could do a convincing Russian accent, and he's got the build, so there we go with that. Um, Either a really young Angela Bassett or the supermodel Iman would be a pretty good storm. What else? Who else was huge in the 80s and stuff? You maybe could get somebody along the lines of like an Anthony Michael Hall to play Nightcrawler. Um, well, comic book guy, you said 80s, didn't and Gambit and Jean-Claude Van Damme. Jean-Claude Van Damme had 80s movies, but Gambit wasn't introduced until the 90s, wasn't he? Software Agents Corps has a. Let's see. Oh, Mike says the dark-haired girl from Breakfast Club is Kitty Pryde. Yeah, totally. What's that actress's name? Ali Sheedy. Ali Sheedy, definitely. I'm thinking like all the Brat Pack stars, like Rob Lowe. Maybe Rob Lowe could play Wolverine. No, he's too young. He could probably play some sort of Cyclops. That could be interesting. Or Emilio Estevez, maybe. Could have been interesting. Yeah. But let's be honest. As soon as we've cast Arnold Schwarzenegger as Colossus, he's the star of the movie. We have an 80s set X-Men movie, and Colossus is the main character. Just because of virtue of who got cast. And in the sequel, they introduced Wolverine as played by Sylvester Stallone. Hey, I'm the best there is at what I do. What I do, it isn't pretty. I am the law. Sorry, just amusing myself now. I think as soon as I'm done with this Leonardo here, I'm probably going to call it a night because it's been at least an hour, and I see that I would need more time to do a proper job. Ricardo Montalban as Magneto. Yeah, why not? That could be fun. I like that. Mueller says Dolph Lundgren as Colossus. Okay, yeah, maybe. That could work too. Clint Eastwood as Wolverine. Possibly, possibly. I could sort of see that. In the 80s, yeah. Sean Connery as Magneto could also be interesting, yeah. Yeah, they could have done a Brat Pack X-Men, absolutely. Judd Nelson, yeah. Like, all those guys, yeah. They totally could have all played various X-Men. And it probably would have been a tremendous hit. I guess Molly Ringwald would become Jean Grey if that happened. I don't see how it couldn't. I mean, she was the redhead of the 80s. Not saying it's the right casting decision, but I'm saying that that's what would have happened if they went that way. And even though Jean-Claude Van Damme would have made a good gambit, they probably would have cast somebody like Christopher Lambert. Save some money. Eastwood is so tall, though. He is, yeah, that is tricky. Hi, Melissa Morg. What you working on? Some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Oh, somebody else made a Christopher Lambert joke. Gershgor says Wolverine would be Christopher Lambert. Yeah. Charlie Sheen as Wolverine? Jeez, I wonder. Maybe in the 80s. Maybe in the 80s he could have pulled it off. They would have had to really scruff him up, but maybe. I could believe that they would do it. I think I'm probably done here for what I can accomplish tonight. Let me see. Thinking things through. Yeah. Well, this doesn't look good, so let me just fix this. I don't like how I feathered either of those areas or anything. So just fill this in. Hope for the best. I think Charlie Sheen would have made a better villain back then. Maybe Quicksilver. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'm trying to think of like an 80s star that would have made a good Wolverine. But Wolverine's always the toughest to cast. He just is. That's why it's amazing that we got Hugh Jackman, because he really, I think everybody kind of agrees that Hugh Jackman did a fantastic job as Wolverine. We lucked out with that. How about a younger Christina Ricci as X-22? In the 80s, she would have been like just too little, right? Well, maybe not. No, she would have been too little in the 80s. We were talking. Yeah, I know Bob Hoskins was almost cast as Wolverine. Who knows how that would have worked? That's weird. You think it might have worked? I mean, he's got the acting chops, but I just trying to imagine him getting into the physical shape it would have required. I don't know. I'm used to him being a round, portly guy. But he's got the attitude. All right. So I didn't get to have time to ink in Michelangelo and Raphael. But Donatello and Leonardo I did. Some really fun questions tonight, talking about music and dreamcasting and building our own teams. Lots of interesting, fun questions. Dustin Hoffman is Professor X. Good actor, maybe. Oh, I got it. 1980s Robert De Niro as Magneto. Yeah, yeah. He could have done that. Wow. He could have made him a big threat. That would have been cool. That would have been cool. All right. Everyone, I'd love to keep chatting, but I think I'm going to have to take off. It's been a lot of fun. We've only got 2 more nights of Inktober left. I can't believe it. I can't believe we're so far along. This felt like it was never going to end. Oh, thank you, Aldi. That's really nice of you. He said good job. So I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with this, and I really had a fun time chatting with everybody. New comic tropes did come out today, so please be sure to check that out. And if any of you can share the episodes, I mean, I'm struggling to grow the channel. You know, I will keep making the content, but I can always use help spreading the word. In the meantime, I will see you tomorrow night. 2 more nights of this. Now that I'm thinking of it, though, I may have to do this earlier in the day on Tuesday because that's Halloween, and this would be right around the time kids would be knocking on my door. So even if I was to like work here, you'd be hearing a doorbell constantly, or potentially. So you know what? Let me think about that, but I'm probably gonna have to do the final one earlier in the day. Oh, Software Agents Corp says I'm a Patreon patron now. Thank you. That's really, really appreciated. Yeah, and I'm not even saying that you have to spread the word on Patreon, Michael. I'm just saying, just like if you like a particular comic tropes video or something like that, consider share that with, a friend that maybe likes that. Software Agents Corp, it helps a lot. It sincerely does. It makes a big difference. So anyway, oh, cool. Thanks, Mike. He says that he shared it with three different people at a reception last night. Well, enough blabbering out of me. That's my self-promotion for the end of the video. I always feel guilty if I talk about myself too long. Sega Migs, don't worry. I'm giving a lot of thought to continuing live streams. I probably can't commit to a daily live stream, but I'm enjoying this both as like a personal growth exercise and the opportunity to interact with all of you. So I'm giving it a thought, like how I could potentially do live streams. Initially, I'll probably do at least one a week at some point. So probably like maybe like a Sunday night or something like that. And if I can do them more frequently, I will. I just need to think that through, like what that would be, because originally this was just a month-long personal challenge, and I wasn't thinking past that. Now I'm having fun. I'm getting to interact with all of you, and I can see the advantage. But I'd have to think through how I'm going to like adjust my life to include that. So I've got stuff going on. Next comic tropes coming up is not based on an American comic. Every once in a while, I like to look at foreign comics. I hope you guys know that, but I really think it's one that almost everyone will like. I think it'll be interesting. I think it'll be fun and hopefully funny. So yeah, thanks all. Thanks for listening to me jabber on. If you want to talk to me or show me anything, right up there, that's my Twitter handle. That's the best way to get a hold of me. I'm taking off now, and until we see each other again, I want you to keep reading comics. Gotta all support the industry. Bye all. You're great.